This is FightFans Radio.
Let's get ready to rumble! Oh my God! Unbelievable!
Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier!
It's time!
You're listening to New Mexico's only mixed martial arts and boxing podcast, The Low Blow, on AtomCombatSports.com and FightFans Radio. It is episode 134 of The Low Blow, and I'm tired. I'm Justin Goodrum, joined by Jorge Hernandez. What's up, man?
What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm hanging in there. A little bit tired, but I'm all right, especially with all these fights going on this weekend. I have no choice but to be kind of excited and be up for it, man. So I'm really pumped up for this weekend. How about yourself?
I'm pretty pumped. How pumped are you for that UFC fight this weekend?
Yeah, it's going to be nuts. We're going to preview the UFC 158 card. We're also going to break down Bernard Hopkins turning back the clock and defeating Father Time once again. And we're going to break down some boxing news just with Canelo Alvarez and Austin Trout's press conference and the whole Nick Diaz GSP saga. But before we do all of that, we have a guest on the line.
Yes, we are joined by El Paso prospect Abraham Hahn, who will be fighting this weekend at the WinStar Casino in Oklahoma against Brandon Bayou. How you doing, Abraham?
I'm doing good. Excited to be fighting this weekend.
Now, it's been several months since we've last seen you in the ring. Last time we saw you, you actually fought, if I'm not mistaken, you fought at home in El Paso. Or I beg your pardon, that was you fought 2 in a row in El Paso against Joe Gomez and Arsenio Terrazas. What's it like to finally step in the ring since, it has been since October since you last stepped in the ropes?
Oh, yeah. I'm just glad, I'm able to get this fight. I was not hurt. I wasn't injured. It just, for some reason, we couldn't land another fight since then.
Yeah. Now, you're signed with Top Rank, and you've only had 2 fights within the past couple of within the past year. Is it difficult just to hold back, even though you're not dealing with an injury, and, for these fights to come by a little slow?
It was in the beginning, but, before I was even with Top Rank, Louis, my coach, told me, that's the business. The best thing to do is just keep staying ready because you never know when they're going to call me up and fight. And so the main thing I've been doing is just let everyone take care of their own business, Top Rank do their business. My coach does his business, and all I do is train or work out as hard as I can. And whoever they put me up against, just concentrate on that person. And that's the best way I have been able to cope with not getting as many fights as I would like.
Yeah. Now, your fight is on Unimas, and it's the co-main event to the Robert Marroquin-Antonio Escalante fight. What's it like to fight with another fellow El Pasoan like Antonio Escalante?
Well, actually, I just found out that I was probably maybe like a couple of weeks ago. I saw Tony at a local El Paso Golden Gloves card, and he was just excited. I saw him. He said, "Man, I'm fighting in Thackerayville, Oklahoma." I was like, "Are you kidding me? I'm fighting there too." And then he said, "When?" And it was both the 16th. So it was really exciting because Louis, coached Tony back in the day, maybe a couple of years ago. They had a falling out, but we're good friends. I support Tony all the way, and it would be exciting, for him to win and for me to win. Just how that little momentum in El Paso.
Yeah. And also, AB, when it does come to the training, you mentioned Louis Burke. We'd be remiss without talking about your sparring partner and your teammate, Austin No Doubt Trout, who is going to have a fight against Canelo Alvarez April 20th. What can you tell us about the training that the two of you have together, and how do you feel that your, one of your very good friends is getting this huge opportunity?
Austin and Louis, they are the keystone. Those 2 pieces, they give me everything. It's truly a blessing to have both Louis and Austin, mainly because, I didn't have the confidence going into boxing in the pros that I would have had with anyone else because, they learned, they knew that I wasn't a natural in boxing. I came from the kickboxing circuit. I did the wrestling for a while, but boxing was never something I was comfortable with. And they broke me down. They got me back to the basics. They showed me the right way to fight. They didn't, get frustrated with me, even though I was from time to time. And Austin, my God, man, what what a person. He's a world champion, and he hasn't let all that fame and all that stardom get to his head. He's so loyal. He's so humble. He's always there to give me pointers, to help me, and I always try to do the best I can for him as well, because the chemistry we have is so strong, and I know that as long as he keeps pushing me and I keep pushing him, there's no limit to where it could take us both. So whoever I fight, I don't even care. Actually, they didn't even tell me the name. I know whoever I'm fighting, they're nothing like Austin. So that's enough, and I have all confidence in the world to beat whoever I fight.
So, and I was going to bring that up. You're sparring, on a daily basis against one of the top, maybe 10, 15 fighters in the world. Talk about the confidence that you have going into every fight.
Oh, when you spar someone like Austin, you've seen his fights. Everybody's seen he's a defensive genius. You cannot, if you hit Austin, you earned it, because he doesn't give you anything. His craft, his movement, I mimic a lot of things that he does because he's just such a genius when it comes on the defensive end. And his setup punches, he knows how to win a punch. The timing is everything with Austin. And, I've learned so much from him. I've learned so much with Louis. Together they show me my weakness. I'm not perfect. I make a lot of mistakes, but they're to show me. And I'm just very fortunate to have them, as a team, because whoever I fight, I doubt they have that kind of feedback from their coaches and has a sparring partner. I've known many people that have a sparring partner and such a good person, such as Austin. So I'm very fortunate and blessed to have both Austin and Louis to work with.
Now, Abraham, you mentioned that you came from the kickboxing and wrestling circuit. You had some fights in the World Combat League. Can you kind of talk about the transition from kickboxing to boxing? What was kind of the catalyst that made you, switch to boxing full time?
Oh, well, the big reason why I switched to boxing full time, I think it was a better opportunity for me, because the kickboxing and the wrestling was I was very strong. That was my heart. I've been doing that since I was 4, so it was just a natural for me to do. The reason why I didn't stay with the kickboxing circuit and the World Combat League circuit, it's kind of died out. It fizzed out, and the next thing was the MMA. So I had a big decision: do I do MMA or do I do boxing? And it was a hard decision for me to make, but in the end, I decided to go with boxing. My family wanted me to do boxing. You can't turn up, someone like Austin and Louis and then do MMA, and I don't really have a good knowledge and foundation with my submission holds and the ground and pound. So I decided that it would be the better option to do boxing, and that's basically what happened.
Also, when it comes to the martial arts, talk about the martial arts school that your father actually runs, and how you and all of your siblings actually partake in the art as well, and in the gym.
Oh yeah, the martial arts is a family-run business here in El Paso. It's really awesome. It's my heart. It's my passion. I love teaching. Seeing kids come up and stuff, and seeing you as their hero and the role model. There's nothing more to it. And we show a lot about discipline and character and having a humble spirit. And when we show these kids this stuff, the feedback they get, and then see their smiles on their face after, because I have a lot of fun with them. And if I wasn't fighting, I would be doing that full time. So it's really great. My sister is one of the lead instructors at our gym, and so is my brother, and my sister is far as well. So every time we have an event, all the students come in, and we do our own thing, and it keeps the family very connected. And my mom and dad as well. So it's just a whole family kind of run thing, and it keeps us really close.
Abraham, you're around all these sports. You have extensive knowledge of a lot of the martial arts. But within the last, I would say, 10 years, there's been a conflict between, boxing and MMA. It seems to be some kind of tension between the two sports. Have you ran into that in terms of kind of, this kind of, I would say, rivalry or natural dislike between kind of participants in both sports? Do you see that as necessary? What's your opinion about that?
Oh yeah, they hate each other. Yeah, boxers hate MMA guys, and MMA guys hate boxers. It's kind of weird, because I do martial arts, and everyone that does our school, especially like in the adult class, we have all these army people coming in, and big tough guys, and they want to do MMA, and they always talk bad about boxing. And then, but on the other side, I'll be boxing, and boxers be talking bad about MMA fighters. So it kind of, I think they're two different sports, in my opinion, because I'm caught in the middle between both of them. Boxing is a different sport, And mixed martial art is a completely different sport. They're different rules. So I just keep them separate. If I was ever to do MMA and I thought I was, the king, I would disrespect the sport. Man, I don't need to learn jiu-jitsu. I don't need to learn submissions. But the truth of the matter, if I go in with that mentality, I'm going to lose. And they're both wonderful sports. MMA is growing, and it's going to keep blossoming. I don't see any letdown. It has a lot of firepower. And boxing, it's still going to be there because you have all those, old, hard, boxing fans, and they're showing their children that. And a lot of people that like to see technical stuff, like seeing little chess matches, going to stick with boxing. But then there's those people that love explosiveness and want to see something, all exciting, quick knockouts, elbows, knees, and that's what MMA generates. So I see both sports growing. I don't see them dying. A lot of people say boxing is going to die and this and that, but I think it's so opposite. You have a lot of stars coming from boxing now, especially with Canelo and Austin, having a little rivalry right there. Then you got Andre Ward, which is a big step up. Mayweather still in the picture. And I just think both sports are going to keep going. And I think they're wonderful, and I'm glad they had that competition because I think it's going to drive both sports higher and higher.
Yeah, and as far as you talk about MMA, the last time you and I actually got to speak was before your fight against Joe Gomez there in El Paso. We did bring up MMA, and you say that it might be something you consider. Do you still feel that strongly about it? Is that something that you think you'd ever lean toward?
Honestly, I'm not saying anything about that, but right now all my concentration is boxing and only boxing. But when I'm done with my boxing career, you can bet money on it. I'll be doing MMA after my boxing career is over. I'm still strong. I kick. I do kickboxing every day. I teach classes. I still drill wrestling. So the only thing I would need to work on is jiu-jitsu. But I'm going to leave all that on the side because I can't be good at many things, but I can be good at one thing. And I need to focus all my attention on boxing right now. But once my boxing career is over, you'll see a switch.
Yeah, and also you're in the 160-pound division, which is one of the hottest divisions right now in boxing. I mean, are there any of the top guys that you actually admire within the weight class?
Oh yeah, there's many people to admire. You have a lot of new guys, a lot of people from different countries. But I like the lead guy, Sergio Martinez. His style, his age and his experience, and he's still knocking out people. He had a classic with Julio Cesar Chavez. And then you have Dmitry Pov, which is kind of unknown, but my God, did you see him fight Daniel Jacobs? He's a beast. I would love to, fight any one of those guys in the future and then see if I really belong, with the elite class of the division.
Well, it's on this weekend, Saturday night on Unimas, which is channel 408 on DirecTV, 271 on Dish Network. We look forward to seeing you back in the ring, and good luck in Oklahoma, AB. Thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, thank you. No problem. Thank you for letting me be here.
Yeah, appreciate it. Have a good night, man.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Dude's a beast that's flying under the radar, man. He's 18-0 with 12 knockouts, and he's sparring, Austin Trout. And there are stories. I've never seen them spar before, but there are a lot of stories from people that go to that gym in Las Cruces that talk about some wars that AB and Austin Trout have actually had. So definitely someone to look forward to, not just here locally. I mean, nationally. The guy signed with Top Rank, one of the top promotions in the world.
Yeah, I think, when you told me Austin Trout, I was like, that must be some kind of nickname. Like, who is this guy? And then years later, he's the champion, and the rest is history. So, I think El Paso, slowly, that's how it starts. It's a couple of guys, get the notoriety, and all of a sudden, El Paso becomes, one of the, dark horse homes for new prospects in boxing. So definitely keep your eyes on Abraham Hahn. Just real quickly, you can get in touch with the rest of the Fight Fans Radio Network through Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Ustream, all using the Fight Fans Radio hashtag. Also, you can get in touch with us through our Facebook page, through our email at lowblow505@gmail.com, and our Twitter feed through @thelowblow. So if you don't mind, man, I kind of have to blow by these standing accounts because I think we're going to spend a lot of time kind of talking about this whole UFC 158 situation. So let's get into it right now. The standing 8 count is the top 8 stories in mixed martial arts and boxing that Jorge and I think should be talked about and discussed. So let's get into it right now. Jose Aldo is set to face Anthony Pettis, according to a report from the Brazilian media outlet Taname. It's set for August 3rd in Rio. Interesting enough, there's an event in Milwaukee around that time. So it's interesting that that fight's being taken place in Brazil and not in Milwaukee. So that's only a rumor. It has not been confirmed from Dana White. But just like Taname, once they usually have a report, it seems like it's somewhat true. So Aldo Pettis, rumored for August 3rd in Rio.
And also over the weekend, Bernard Hopkins defeated Father Time one more time, along with defeating Tavares Cloud. Apparently 1.2 million people tuned in to watch Hopkins defeat Cloud for the World Championship. So they drew one of the bigger numbers that they've done in the last couple of years. Hopkins, 48 years old, winning another championship, breaking his own record of winning a World Championship as one of the oldest men to do so. He was 46 when he first set the record. Now at 48 years old, not sure what's next for Bernard Hopkins, whether it's John Pascal or Chad Dawson, but either way, this guy is insane. It's unbelievable to see what he's actually doing.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. I think we'll get into it later. I'll say this for now. I don't think he gets the respect that Randy Couture did, and I think even though considering how Randy did, MMA was on kind of the incline at the time. I think now it seems like what Bernard Hopkins is doing is pretty remarkable. I don't think he's getting that kind of national respect like Randy did. Even though Randy lost, I think a couple of more times compared to Bernard Hopkins, and certainly winning the championships, I think Bernard Hopkins kind of beats him there. So it's very interesting. Let's talk about the UFC. And it looks like they're going to meet with Dominic Cruz to discuss his future. The bantamweight champion has been out for over a year. It looks like the UFC needs to make a decision as to if Dominic Cruz is going to be the champion or does he need to relinquish the title. Here's a quote from Dana White during the media scrum, which is, by the way, an hour and a half. So you can check that out online right now. But a quote, he's our champ, he's our guy, he needs time. But we're getting to a point now where we really need to make a decision. That's unquote from Dana White today. So the bantamweight division, there's an interim title fight. I think it's Renan Barão, and I forgot who he's facing against. You guys can help me out, Erica or Jorge. But that's going now later, sometime late spring, early summer. But, there's Uriah Faber in action. He's going to be headlining the tough finale. But I think Dominic Cruz, you need the champion in the division for the division to flourish and grow. So with him on the shelf, especially for this length of time, I think a decision needs to be made as to his future.
Is that pretty sad that we couldn't figure out who he actually fights next? I mean, Eddie Wineland or someone, right?
There you
I
go.
can't remember.
Yeah.
Who it is? Okay.
I heard it a couple of days ago, and I just totally spaced it now, man.
Yeah,
this
man,
Nick fried my brain. So it was Nick
that was pretty embarrassing, man. I couldn't remember either. But in other news, speaking of embarrassing, a lot of people feel that 50 Cent's boxing entrepreneurial endeavor hasn't worked too well for him. He lost a world title the other day as Billy Dibb was defeated on ESPN Friday Night Fights a couple of weeks ago. And apparently he tried pursuing Gary Russell Jr., who is one of the best prospects in boxing. And he's not very interested in actually joining him. According to Ring, Russell has apparently rejected 50's zeal, and it's going to be very interesting to see how 50 Cent actually continues to develop as a promoter. As mentioned, Yorkis Gamboa didn't look too good in that Juan Manuel Marquez undercard. So with 50, his two best fighters are Yorkis Gamboa and Billy Dibb. And with both guys, with Yorkis having a questionable chin, and Billy Dibb losing the championship, it's 50 Cent's entrepreneurial decisions as a promoter are going to come into question.
Do you think I'm back now? Sorry, my dog's being stupid. But anyway, sorry not to leave you hanging there. But do you think, considering his fallout with Floyd Mayweather, do you just think 50 Cent just moves on to some other endeavor. I mean, he has so many businesses. He's pretty business savvy, even though he has a passion for boxing. Wouldn't it be in just his interest to maybe just align himself with a Golden Boy or a top rank, an already established promotion instead of doing this on his own?
It is. It's difficult to start, in the big game, if you will, with all of these world championship fights the way he actually has. It's not. It's difficult. You're going to need the help of these other big promoters. I mean, you've seen these alliances with Al Heyman working a lot with Golden Boy. Let's say, for instance, Al Heyman, of course, a power advisor in boxing, one of the best advisors in boxing, actually working with 50 Cent. And I don't know if 50 is willing to do it, but it's just a little difficult to jump in the game the way 50 did. I think he could be a powerful promoter in the regional circuit and then maybe build himself up from there. But as of right now, I think he's in over his head with the national spotlight that he's trying to put himself in.
Looks like Mark Hunt. There's been a kind of a underground movement to move Mark Hunt into the heavyweight title picture. It looks like he'll get his wish if he defeats Junior Dos Santos at UFC. Looks like 160. That's taking place in May. That's the big heavyweight card. So if he can take out JDS, then he'll earn himself a title shot. He's the late replacement for Alistair Overeem. So that's a big opportunity for Mark Hunt. I think he has more of a puncher's chance to win that fight, actually. I like his chances. I don't like his chances against a champion, but, I think, in MMA in 2013, we've seen, a lot of the guys that have been heralded as the heroes of the sport, Chuck, Randy, Fedor, the list goes on and on, seen him retire or just fade into the background. I think it would be nice to see one of these guys from, the K1 glory days, the Pride glory days, to get one more shot at the big time. So, and I'll be lying if I wasn't rooting for Mark Hunt against JDS. Nothing personal against Dos Santos, but I think that'll be a very interesting fight come May.
And I think you can find maybe a few amount of people that would even cheer against him. I mean, I like seeing him fight. Despite the fact that he doesn't have one of the best records in the world, I just love that the guy has KO power. And anything could happen at any time, man, when it comes to him.
And neither does Roy Nelson, and Roy Nelson still gets big fights. At least Mark Hunt's winning. So. Yeah,
definitely. And if you forgot, this weekend is the Timothy Bradley versus the Ruslan Providnikov WBO championship fight. So Timothy Bradley is coming back and making a return to the ring. Apparently, he's highly in favor of more drug testing within boxing. So recently we saw an argument, if you will, not an argument, just a disagreement between Guillermo Rigondeaux and Nonito Donaire. Nonito Donaire, the biggest supporter of drug testing and random drug tests within boxing. And now you see Timothy Bradley coming to the forefront. Doesn't matter how big of a Bradley fan you are. I think everyone, would like to see this sport get cleaned up. And, there's nothing to do but support his endeavor in actually doing it. So Timothy Bradley versus Ruslan Providnikov, Saturday night. So if you're not watching, if you don't order the UFC, make sure you catch the boxing.
Yeah, no doubt. This is a very, interesting story and a fight I think people are really looking forward to. Ricardo Lamas taking on the Korean zombie Chang Sung-jan at UFC 162. I think that's going to be a fantastic fight. The only kind of bummer about this is that Ronda Rousey could be on this card, so this fight might not get the attention that it deserves. If Ronda Rousey's on this card, I think a lot of questions are going to go to the main event with Anderson Silva, Chris Weidman, and Ronda Rousey, whoever she fights, and I can see this being third on the card. So nevertheless, I think this is an extraordinary fight, very exciting, and hopefully the winner does get their title shot. But with Dana White making his decisions, who knows?
And also, speaking of Bernard Hopkins earlier, there was a little bit of news that came out at the end of his victory. He went over to the ringside announcers, Jim Lampley, Max Kellerman, and Andre Ward, who's known probably as one of the two best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, and told Andre Ward, I will never fight you, Andre. There's not enough money that they can pay me. I will not fight you. So apparently Hopkins has a lot of respect for him, and there isn't enough money that they could pay him to actually step in the ring with Andre Ward, either at 167 pounds or at a catch weight. He considers Andre Ward a protege, and Hopkins, had some words for the HBO team also. He told them, hey, I need a contract. I'm either staying with you guys or Showtime. and you heard it over the microphones. I don't think Hopkins knew he was talking that loud, but when he was yelling at the guys ringside, you could hear what he said. So
wow, you imagine if he goes to Showtime, and that's just another blow to the HBO boxing, man.
It would be another blow, especially thinking of how well, the viewership did for his fight. It was a fight that I didn't think would have that many people tune in, but I think as the Twitter and just, I guess, the social media took off on him possibly beating Tavares Cloud, that's when people just started tuning in a lot more.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's do, I guess, it's 2 rounds. I'm trying to reserve my, I guess, frustration for later on in the show. So okay. I want to keep my 2 rounds relatively short. How about yours, Jorge?
My round is basically off of what we posted this week or just yesterday on swfight.com. So on Southwest Fight News, we have a question and answer with Cecilia Brækhus, who, of course, is considered one of the top 2 female boxing champions or pound-for-pound fighters next to Holly Holm, who hails out of Albuquerque. After the question and answer, man, I felt like she was trying to go around a lot of the questions that I did present to her. So it kind of made me consider, who's really ducking who. Is just the timeline of everything doesn't really match up the way she said things were presented, and her reason for fighting Mia St. John. Mia St. John's, about in her mid-40s, and she says she wants to fight her because she considers her a legend. I mean, it's obviously for the money. You don't go out after a middle-aged woman that is 10, 15 years past her prime. So that's what kind of got me on this week, just really thinking, well, maybe it is Cecilia Brækhus that doesn't really want this fight to happen. There's a lot of he said, she said of how everything, or she said in this case, of how and why this fight hasn't gone down.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in complete agreement with you, man. I just think overall, it just seems like this fight's not going to happen, and I think Holly Holm seriously needs to make a life choice in picking one sport or the other. But that's another topic for another day. I'll just my round is this, and also just to let you guys know, 2 rounds is a segment that me and Jorge feel are, we talk about a topic that we feel passionate about, that we want to go a minute and just explain ourselves. This my thing real quickly, because I think we're going to have a huge discussion about UFC 158, so this one's not going to seem not long. But Inside MMA interviewed writer Dave Bagel. He's a columnist for a Milwaukee paper. He really got noticed for this bashing MMA and bashing the first women's fight in UFC history with Ronda Rousey and Liz Carmouche. He's of OneMilwaukee.com. And apparently, after his column, he was on Inside MMA. And I just thought the segment, it sucked, to be perfectly honest. I just think having this guy on your show pretty much validates him. And I just think as much as you want to pretty much go bash this guy and discredit him on your platform, Inside MMA, I think it makes Kenny Rice and Bas Rutten look really bad, and just even acknowledging this guy's opinion as being worthy at all. So I just thought it was a terrible segment. I mean, Inside MMA, I don't really like that show too much anyway, but I just thought it was just such a waste of time, because you're just giving that guy a platform. And really, at the end of the day, he looked. I mean, now he knows what he. Now the viewers know what he looks like. He has a presence on television. And that's probably the biggest thing he's ever had in his career, and Inside MMA gave it to him. So I just thought that was kind of a bummer and something that he didn't deserve.
The guy didn't have really any good opinions or good on actual MMA. It was just completely. It would just bewilder me of why they even had him on, like you said. Did it make sense? I have no
idea. No, it seemed like one of those, CNN or Fox News kind of segments where you want to raise some controversies, have a screaming match, and it really doesn't serve the purpose of the sport at all. So I want to get these topics out of the way before we preview UFC 158. Canelo Alvarez and Austin Trout had their press conference. They began their Texas, press conference tour for their fight April 20th. Jorge, you'll be out there covering this fight with SouthwestFight.com and our podcast. Obviously, you weren't at the press conference. I don't think this was streamed either on the internet. It's a press conference. These two guys don't really have any animosity, but can you kind of go over, any kind of rivalry between these two guys? What's the deal here, man?
there is some sort of rivalry. The WBA championship belt that Austin Trout actually has, the way he won the interim version of the belt was by defeating Canelo Alvarez's brother in their hometown of Guadalajara, Mexico. I mean, that's the only real beef that they can actually have. And I think when Showtime actually does a preview, a countdown show of this, they're going to highlight that as much as possible. I mean, the real beef between these two guys, they're the two best guys at 154 pounds, and they're actually going to fight. So that would be an automatic beef between the two guys. But as far as hatred for one another, I don't think it exists. I honestly think Canelo thinks that Austin Trout is not on his level, and that's a huge just overlooking on Canelo's part. It's a huge mistake. Canelo feels that he belongs here, and think about the last fight. He attended ringside at the Miguel Cotto Austin Trout fight. He was there basically scouting Miguel Cotto.
I think he was borderline cheering him on.
Exactly. Yeah. Austin, and even beforehand, there was a small media scrum with Canelo before the weigh-ins in New York, where we were able to ask him a few questions. And he said, well, I'm here to basically take a look at my next opponent, Miguel Cotto, if he wins. No mention of Austin Trout. So I think more of the beef is actually coming from Austin Trout, still feeling that he's trying to gain the respect from the boxing community and from some of these top boxers.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Just real quickly, can you kind of go over B-Hop's victory on Tavares Cloud? I heard it's pretty much a boxing clinic. Since Bernard Hopkins doesn't want to fight Andre Ward, I don't think that'd be a big pay-per-view seller, but that seems to be kind of the biggest kind of super fight you could put Bernard Hopkins in. What's really left for Bernard Hopkins to do? Just fight until he's in his 60s, or is he looking for one big payday? What's exactly the end game he's looking for here?
I think one of two things. He's going to fight Chad Dawson, who he lost by majority decision the last time he actually fought. You may remember that their first contest ended in a hurt Bernard Hopkins. He was basically dropped to the floor by Chad Dawson. I mean, not necessarily dropped. Chad Dawson just kind of shoved him off. Or John Pascal. Their two fights have actually been decent. The first fight with John Pascal in Canada, that was a draw. The second fight also in Montreal at the Bell Center. Hopkins edged that out, 115, 114, 115, 113, and then 116, 112 on the other card. So that's a pretty damn close fight. So a rematch with John Pascal would actually make a decent amount of money. I think they have to do that one here in the United States. Hopefully back at the Barclays Center there in Brooklyn, just because of the fact they had a great crowd the other night. It was a basketball-type crowd who would stand up and cheer at the right moments, at the end of the rounds. It's just boxing in New York City is beautiful. And, you think about it, and I just can't wait till MMA gets its time to shine there. But as far as the Brooklyn's Barclays Center, it's an incredible venue and very good boxing fans there in the Brooklyn and New York area.
Yeah, that arena is nice, man. Even, the YouTube the channel itself streamed Jay-Z's concert from there. It's an incredible venue to really watch any kind of sporting event, whether it's music or boxing. Hopefully MMA, like you say, gets its time there. Let's talk about Timothy Bradley's fight real quickly. His last time in the squared circle was against Manny Pacquiao in a fight I attended about a year ago. That tells you how long Bradley's been off. I think I read a quote where Bradley regrets even winning that fight. He said he'd be better off if he lost to Manny Pacquiao. I also saw about a 4-minute piece on HBO.com about Timothy Bradley's background growing up with his father, discussing his rise through the boxing ranks, and just talking about the thoughts of the pressure getting to him and how suicide crept in his mind. With all this coming to light, with Timothy Bradley, you think him defeating Manny Pacquiao would change his life for the better, but instead it's kind of turned into a nightmare. Can he kind of do anything to kind of rectify that situation this Saturday night? Or is that kind of weird decision that we saw a year ago always going to haunt him?
I think that weird decision is always going to haunt him just because of the fact he, quote-unquote, defeated one of the best fighters of a generation. We all know he didn't win that fight. But also because of the fact that was a boring fight. He made it a boring fight. He's not one of the most exciting guys that we see out there. There's not many guys that are going to make him look good. and he doesn't have the real knockout power that's going to attract fans. So he likes to make fights ugly. You know, he's like Bernard Hopkins, where he tries to input, or actually impose, I should say, his style of fighting, the nice, rugged, I'm going to work you in the inside, move my head and hit you with my shoulders a little bit type of style. So for him, unfortunately, unless, he's able to start knocking people out, I doubt he'll ever get a good fight against Mayweather. Maybe Marcus fights him, but I don't think Marcus would ever want to fight him. Maybe Robert Guerrero. Devin Alexander rematch, I would hate to see. A Kell Brook fight might make it exciting, but that's because Kell Brooks is the one who's going to bring the action. So, or who knows? We saw Keith Thurman just recently on that Bernard Hopkins undercard come off with another victory. That might be an exciting fight to see his power against Timothy Bradley's rugged style. So the only possible fight I see with him is maybe a Keith Thurman or maybe even a Josecito Lopez. I mean, no one else in the top contenders I think would want to fight him.
Mm. All right, man. Let's get to talking about this UFC 158 card. There's so many stories, and let's just cut to the chase, man. Discuss the main event. It's George St. Pierre against Nick Diaz for the welterweight title. You guys already know that. It's going to be in Montreal, Canada. It's near a sellout. If you've been following the situation the last week or so, there's open workouts. I believe yesterday, Nick Diaz no-showed. He claimed that he needed to recover from the flight. And then today, he showed up for the press conference and proceeded to insult George St. Pierre, even accusing him of being on steroids, among other insults. I guess there's two ways to talk about this fight. One is actually in the octagon, and one outside of it. I'll just say this real quickly because I don't want to get on a big rant. I think with Nick Diaz, I'm going to say it right now, I don't think he's going to be able to handle the pressure of this fight. I think from his quotes from the press conference, pretty much tells you that if George St. Pierre takes him down and is able to hold him down, if Nick Diaz is unable to scramble back to his feet, I think he's going to be defeated. I think he's going to take the approach of, oh man, this guy's holding me down. He doesn't want to fight me. I'm just going to lay here, and there's going to be no desire to really do anything until the ref stands him back up. I think once that happens, once stand-ups happen, I think he'll talk trash, and George St. Pierre will just take him down again. I think that's why at the press conference today, you didn't really see George St. Pierre go so much back and forth with Nick Diaz. I think he did somewhat, but not as much as you would think by the way Nick Diaz was talking trash about him. So I just don't think Nick Diaz is mentally ready for this fight, man. I just personally, in my mind, I couldn't imagine him being champion. I just don't know if he can handle the pressure. So I'm picking George St. Pierre. I think Nick Diaz maybe wins 2 rounds, but I think in the end, George St. Pierre, ground and pound. I think this fight's very similar to the Carlos Condit fight. I think Nick Diaz has his moments, but in the end, I think George St. Pierre takes it. Jorge, he got to go and play Dr. Phil here. And if you were in Nick Diaz's corner, what would you tell him in terms of, being on the bottom with George St. Pierre on top? I mean, what's going to be the game plan in trying to keep Nick Diaz focused on winning the fight and not getting into the mindset of wanting to quit and just pretty much, going to be very aggressive, after the fight happens, accusing the judges of not looking at damage instead of, wrestling and takedowns?
Well, as far as the takedowns, he's got to stay away from them. We saw it in the Carlos Condit fight. George St. Pierre is just too wide. This guy is just too big to get around on the ground, and his wrestling is superior to most of the guys within the welterweight division. As far as what Nick Diaz would have to do to actually be in this fight, he's going to have to fight long. And what I mean by that, he's going to have to use the jab a lot. But here's the thing. George St. Pierre has a pretty damn strong jab himself. So the guys are going to have to play this game, or Nick Diaz is going to have to force this stand-up game to actually come up. And I don't think he has the power to be able to hurt George the way Condit did in the middle of their fight. So it's going to be very difficult for Nick Diaz to pull off a victory if this fight goes down to the ground. His best bet is to fight long, and I don't think he really knows how because he likes to throw those combinations in the inside. And George St. Pierre isn't going to brawl with him standing up. He's going to take him to the ground and put the beating that he wants to actually imply on him. So
Yeah. Did you catch the? There's a Freddie Roach interview circling around the internet now. Freddie Roach, a known boxing trainer, trains Manny Pacquiao. Is the leader of the Wild Card Gym. He called Nick Diaz a street fighter, saying that his boxing's overrated. What do you think about that?
I disagree. I mean, his boxing is pretty good. I mean, it is sort of, I guess Street Fighter related, if you will, but the guy's precision is incredible. I mean, he's able to hit you in the chin maybe 3, 4 times before you're even able to move. He's precise when it comes to his punches, and he's short with them, and that's what you actually want. I mean, those short punches are going to have the most effect. He's not a power puncher. He's not going to throw these H bombs that Henderson is actually able to do. He just doesn't have that type of power. He's a nice, slick fighter when he does throw combinations. He can't be hitting you one at a time because he's not going to do any damage with you. I don't think I don't think George St. Pierre is going to take Carlos Condit's blueprint of using his ring generalship to actually outwork and outpunch Nick Diaz from the distance just because of how superior his wrestling is. But as far as boxing, I think Nick Diaz is one of the top maybe 3-5 boxers in the sport of MMA.
Yeah, I agree. I think I like your analysis, man, of him being inside, George St. Pierre's range to initiate the clinch. And I think once there's a clinch, there's going to be a takedown, and I just think George St. Pierre is pretty much going to take it from there. Let's talk about things outside the cage. Nick Diaz not showing up for the press conferences. He didn't show up for the press conferences for the first attempt at this fight, but not showing up for the open workout for this bout. What's your opinion on that? What's your opinion on him just continuing to whine and complain? I mean, if you're Carlos Condit, I mean, people are saying, look at Carlos Condit's face when it's all was going on today. I mean, if you're Condit or Hendricks or Ellenberg or Marquardt, what's going through these guys' minds? I mean, these guys take the flights. These guys have to cut weight. These guys go in there and they bleed, they sacrifice just like Nick Diaz does. So why does Nick Diaz feel like has any kind of sense of entitlement at all?
I'm not sure, man. It's just because of the fact maybe that he just doesn't feel comfortable when it comes to people in general. It's just very difficult to get in this guy's mind because you just have no idea of what he's going to do. For example, today's press conference, it was just a verbal attack against George St. Pierre, who was just sitting as serious as possible on the other side. And correct me if I'm wrong, did they even ask Carlos Condit a single question? I can't remember.
Zero.
No? Hendricks received.
Hendricks got one.
He actually got two, but
yeah.
Nick Diaz actually cut off the first question and launched a verbal attack on George St. Pierre. So he's taking the spotlight from these guys, and he even admits, you know what, the talking got me this fight. So you know what I mean? You guys can't blame me. I'm trying to do, basically I'm trying to do me. Yeah, he's out there looking out for himself, but as far as, he does add all these storylines of him not showing up. And maybe he's feeding into it. Maybe it's not even that he's doing it on purpose anymore. Maybe he just does it because people expect him to do this. They expect him to be, even though he hates it, this bad guy. And I think he's falling in love with that. And it's getting him these huge fights, despite the fact that he lost his last bout.
Yeah, I'll just say this before we move on to Carlos Condit, Johnny Hendricks. I think Nick Diaz, he could be difficult. He could be even a diva. I would have no problem with that. I think in this whole open workout thing, Ariel Helwani says he was 40 minutes late before anybody knew he actually canceled on the open workout. All he had to do was just tell Cesar Gracie, just tell Dana I'm sick, I got food poisoning, I'm not showing up for the open workout. There'd be no problem. Be like, it's already confirmed that he's not going to be there. Instead, you have people waiting, people think he's going to be there, and all of a sudden he doesn't show up. Everybody calls in sick to work. Everybody lies, about there's some days you don't want to go into work. You call into work, you lie. I mean, this guy's not even good enough to lie about not going to this open workout. It's just insane. I just don't understand it at all. I think this fight will be exciting. I think this fight should get around, I would say, 850,000 pay-per-view buys. Doesn't have the buzz as Ronda Rousey does, but George St. Pierre is a way bigger pay-per-view draw. And I think with the Nick Diaz factor, I mean, Carlos Condit, a lot of people were disrespecting him and saying George St. Pierre was going to destroy him. And that fight did pretty well on pay-per-view, all things considered. So I think with Nick Diaz, a trash talker, and a fight that people have been waiting for the last, I dare to say, 5 to 6 years, I think this is going to do relatively well on pay-per-view.
Jay, a really quick question for you,
what's up,
Jay.
man?
When it comes to that Ronda Rousey bout, I don't remember hearing final pay-per-view numbers. Do you remember anything about it?
I've heard low end 400,000, high end 500,000.
Wow.
I think to me, I don't know. I think before she fought, I think that'd be a huge number. But considering the buzz and considering all the media attention, I think those numbers are kind of disappointing. I mean, what we see was true. It's the internet, so you can't take it with a grain of salt. But all things considered, what I've been hearing is that the media coverage of UFC 157 rivaled UFC 100. So for it to only get 500,000 on pay-per-view, you would think it'd do a little bit better than that. But I guess 500,000 is 500,000. Again, I have to temper my expectation. But it seemed kind of weird just in terms of all the media attention she got, and it only did, 400 to 500,000. It does kind of seem kind of weird to me. So,
and here it is. I mean, I don't know if you saw what Erica just posted, but apparently that's the fourth highest pay-per-view draw in the UFC history. So that's pretty incredible.
She's the fourth highest draw in the company.
Oh, okay.
I was like in history. I was like, holy crap. Okay. So she's number 4 on the list. Okay, cool. So yeah, I think in the future, I think her numbers are going to go up tremendously. I mean, she's been all over the place since she won the fight. So big things for her. Let's get to Carlos Condit. We care about this fight in our neck of the woods. He's fighting Johnny Hendricks. MMA Fighting's Luke Thomas has been on record and saying this fight makes 0 sense because Carlos Condit, whether we think he did a good job or not, technically lost the fight, 50 to 45 or 49-46. I mean, the scorecards pretty much state that it was a lopsided bout, despite Condit rocking GSP and giving him one of the toughest fights of his championship reign. So at the end of the day, even if Carlos Condit destroys Johnny Hendricks, which I'm not really suggesting, I think this is going to be a tough fight, but a fight that Condit's going to win. I'm picking Condit to win. But the best case scenario is Condit destroys Johnny Hendricks. I mean, is he really in line for another title shot immediately?
I think so. I mean, who else are they going to do? They're not going to wait for Rory McDonald. Rory McDonald isn't going to fight George St. Pierre.
And vice versa.
Yeah, it's not going to work out. So who is next in line? I mean, the 3 guys right now, Johnny Hendricks, Carlos Condit, Nick Diaz, and then probably Rory McDonald. I doubt they're going to give Damian Maia or Jake Allenberger the next title fight. I mean, there's no reason. It makes no sense. So what's going to happen, I think, is if Nick Diaz somehow pulls off the upset here, they'll have an automatic rematch. They'll make a lot more pay-per-view money in the rematch because of a Diaz victory in the first fight. So that will leave Johnny Hendricks and Carlos Condit out once again. And then Rory McDonald comes back into page, maybe faces Diaz if that happens. I doubt that's going to happen, though. I think St. Pierre wins this fight rather easily. But as far as the top 2 contenders, it's Johnny Hendricks, Carlos Condit. The UFC pulled out this ranking system to help the fans get an idea of who might be next in line for the title fight. It's not something that they have to, abide by. I mean, they could change their own rules, but in a reasonable...
They don't abide by it.
They don't apply by it. They don't.
No,
but
they don't.
In a reasonable world, Johnny Hendricks and Carlos Condit, ranked 1 and 2, the winner should get the next title fight against George St. Pierre or whoever the winner is at that time. Obviously, the only thing that will prevent that is a Diaz victory in this fight Saturday night.
Yeah, I just think, if we believe this article that came out on BloodyElbow.com today from George St. Pierre's ex-manager, Stephanie Patry, apologize if I got that name wrong, but basically, if George, the plan is supposedly some kind of master plan with GSP is if he beats Nick Diaz, he'll fight Condit or Johnny Hendricks, and then he'll face Anderson Silva in the third bout. I guess George St. Pierre has been fooling everybody and saying that he does not want to face Anderson Silva, and in fact he does. So I would say that's only a rumor until George St. Pierre actually comes out and says that. I think for now we can take it with a grain of salt. I think with this fight, it's very interesting with Johnny Hendricks, what he's gone through, man. I feel bad for this guy. Of course, we're going to root for Carlos Condit. He's the Albuquerque boy, 505 South Valley all day. But at the same time, you feel horrible for Johnny Hendricks. Like, if he goes and knocks out Carlos Condit unconscious here, he could get screwed once again. I mean, if Diaz gets a close fight to George St. Pierre, or if St. Pierre loses the title, even if Diaz destroys him, George St. Pierre's going to be in line for, like you said, Jorge, an automatic rematch. Hendricks is left out in the cold again. And so He had to take another fight, another fight against Rory McDonald, and a guy that doesn't even want to fight the champion.
No, it's a very good point. So I mean,
this is terrible.
it's the ultimate murderer's row that you can go through. If Johnny Hendricks actually, he's basically fighting his way up and then his way back down and then back up. It's incredible what this guy has gone through. But fortunately, we did hear Dana White say that the winner of this fight, is in line, is the number one contender. But he never said
this guy
exactly. No, there's no reason. I mean, he goes back on a lot of things that he actually says.
Yeah, exactly. I want to get into the Jake Ellenberger Nate Marquardt fight. I don't know if you cut the countdown special, man. And Erica, you can kind of chime in on this too. But it just seemed like Ellenberger's not really into fighting that much, man. They went into his training camp and he said that he hates waking up in the morning. He hates the training. He just seems like it's just a lot of work, and that if he's not in line for the title, he wouldn't be doing this. He'd pick another profession and just. He just seems like once his opponent got changed, that kind of discouraged him. And he was in the gym and he was talking about how other guys, roughed him up in the gym and how he wasn't performing as well as his training camp. And this he doesn't seem too into this fight at all. And considering that Nate Marquardt is very dangerous, and that even though Marquardt lost his last fight against Tarek Saffiedine, it just seems to me like Ellenberger, for some reason, is just not really into the sport. I mean, is he vulnerable for Marquardt kind of destroying him? I mean, Ellenberger, if he wins against Marquardt, and you never know with injuries, he needs to be ready for possibly being put in the title mix or in the interim title mix if super fights happen. But why is Ellenberger kind of going through this, midlife crisis in his MMA career?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Go ahead, Erica. Yeah.
I'm not sure. I actually, this is the first time I'm hearing of it, and Jake may he may be a little disenchanted with the MMA scene. When you see people like Nick Diaz getting the title fights for the way they talk, and let's be honest, Ellenberger doesn't have the most memorable personality. And maybe he's feeling a little disenchanted. I can't blame him for it. And you never know what's going on with his head. He may just be expressing it. He may just be projecting his emotions on something else onto fighting right now.
Sure.
Which I hope is what the case is, because I don't think he's a fantastic fighter, but he, like you said, he is near the top of his division. So keep at it, man. I don't get it. I don't understand it.
Yeah, it just came out of nowhere just watching it on the countdown special how kind of depressed he was. I mean, he's only lost twice in his UFC career and has plenty of notable wins, and yet he's talking like a guy who's lost 3 in a row, and it's just pretty bizarre to watch there. We have 7 minutes. Go ahead, man.
I was just saying he's won 7 of his last 8. Who do you got in this fight?
I think if I didn't see that countdown special, I'd pick Ellenberger. But it seems like Nate Marquardt's hungry despite losing to Saffiedine. But Marquardt can put it all together. Marquardt is very exciting and one of the most dynamic, underrated strikers in all of MMA. That's when he actually puts it together. But I got to pick Marquardt. He seems the hungrier fighter. He's back in the UFC after being kind of shunned by Dana White. He just seems like he wants to prove something, whereas Ellenberger just, I don't know what he wants to do. It seems like he wants to move on to another line of work, I guess. So I'm picking Marquardt. How about yourself?
I think I'm doing the same thing, man, just because, it's just very...
I hope I'm wrong, too, because I like it, Jake Ellenberger.
No, I like him also, and he was mentioned as one of the possible opponents to actually move in to fight Carlos Condit, but I'm not sure, man. Just seeing his performances the last 3 times out, I mean, the Martin, Kampman defeat actually just hurt him and dropped him down the rankings just a little bit, but I mean, even against Diego Sanchez, he kind of, ran out of steam. So, as you mentioned, just wondering how much, he's really dedicated to this based off of what you were saying. So, I think it's going to be a pretty damn good fight. I think these 3 fights, this Carlos Condit,
Johnny Hendricks, GSP, Nick Diaz, and Jake Ellenberger, Nate Marquardt. It's pretty solid last 3 fights of the evening, and I think I'm going to go the same. I'm going to go Nate Marquardt.
Let's talk about Quinn Melhern against Rick Story. Quinn Melhern out of Santa Fe, New Mexico, making his UFC debut. This is a pretty big fight, especially, I think he's with Gracie Barra, right?
Gracie Barra, and he's also fighting out of Jackson's now. He just recently made the move to Jackson, so he's fighting with alongside all those top guys, but very good BJJ fighter. I mean, he's a black belt, and he's training with some of the best BJJ guys in the world here with Rafael Barata Freitas and also Roberto Tusa Alencar. Roberto Tusa Alencar, one of the better heavyweights here, and that always participates in the national and world championships.
Yep, and he'll be fighting Rick Story. He's really fighting possibly for his UFC career. It's been kind of tipsy-turvy in terms of his win-loss record, but I think for Quinn, this is a tough first fight in UFC, man. Rick Story's no joke.
It is, and also when it comes to Quinn Mulhern, we'll have a story up on swfight.com Friday morning about this guy, just so you can get a little bit of background of him. But originally came from California, made his move to Santa Fe, New Mexico, where he went to school and just started training there in MMA. And the guy's 18-2. It's rare for you to fly that under the radar in Central New Mexico when out of 20 fights you only have 2 losses. And this guy has flown under the radar the last 8 years that he's actually been here. So this hopefully is the start of a coming out party. That way people can notice him here. I mean, he's only 28 years old, so he's still got reasonable time to make some noise in the UFC.
Yeah, he's been on the Strikeforce Challengers circuit for a while. That's maybe a reason. Even then, that's still national TV on Showtime. And yeah, he's kind of been really under the radar. So this is really a big deal. It's going down in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, UFC 158. You got about 3 more minutes, man. Anything else you wanted to add?
No, also, when it comes to a little bit on him, also, he's a former King of the Cage welterweight champion also. So, I mean, he's known throughout the regional circuit, and finally he's getting his chance. It kind of surprised me that when Strikeforce first, I guess, folded or got bought out, that he wasn't mentioned as one of the guys that would be making the move. It did take an injury to Sean Pearson for him to actually be able to jump in. But like you said,
wow,
Rick Story is no pushover, man. This guy's a beast. Even though he's lost 3 of his last 4 fights, he still poses a serious threat and is a good, I guess, measuring stick for Quinn Mulhern to see how well he's going to do in this 170-pound division.
Yeah, that's a shame just with the whole Sean Pearson thing. No disrespect to Sean Pearson, but I mean, Sean Pearson's best days are behind him. And it's just, Quinn Mulhern, I think, deserves the opportunity to see what he can do against a top level of competition. So I think that's going to wrap up our show, man. Just one more thing. I don't know if you caught this or not. Benson Henderson won a grappling tournament in Arizona.
Oh, wow.
That's been circulating around the internet. His whole jiu-jitsu match is online, by the way. And I think in that tournament, his mom competed in the same tournament too. So it's pretty cool to see the Instagram picture on Benson Henderson's Twitter feed. So go ahead and check that out. So it's UFC 158 this weekend. I'm sure myself and Jorge will be tweeting on Southwest Fight's Twitter feed and on the Low Blow Twitter feed, along with our personal Twitter handles. You can get in touch with the show again through Facebook, Twitter, and Facebook. Also, you can get in touch with our partners, FightFans Radio. They have our show along with the rest of the FightFans Radio family. Please go check that out. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Ustream. Also we're on SouthwestFight.com. Now I'll have Jorge's story on Quinn Mulhern along with the latest with Southwest Fight News, also U.S. Combat Sports, and of course FightFans Radio. So one more chance, Jorge. Anything else you wanted to say? Anything else you wanted to say about UFC 158? You're just ready to see it.
UFC 158, I'm ready to see it. My picks quickly: GSP, Carlos Condit. You know what? I'm going all out. I'm saying Carlos Condit by knockout in the 2nd round. I have no idea why, but I just think he might end up catching Johnny Hendricks as one of those combinations because of the looping punches Johnny Hendricks punch that throws. I think
he leaves himself open.
Yes, he does leave himself open, and anything short, I think Condit might actually be able to catch him. Might even put some money on that, man. He's a slight underdog.
Yeah, for some weird reason. I think I agree with you. I think I echo your picks, man. So we're teaming up with all
we are
3 main event.
And then two more things, of course, Unimas, Abraham Hahn, and Antonio Escalante, two different fights, but 2 fighters out of the El Paso area, very talented, and the boxing on HBO. So you have no excuse
Yeah, it's going to be a great fight weekend. So for Jorge, I'm Justin Goodjim. We'll see you next time. You've been listening to Low Blow on SouthwestFight.com, USCombatSports.com, and Fight Fans Radio. Enjoy UFC 158.
Peace.